Since the release of Dragon Ball Super Trailer 2, the talk of the town has been on Dragon Ball Minus, the bonus chapter that first appeared in 2014 at the end of the Jaco the Galactic Patrolman manga. Since its release, it has been one of the most divisive additions to the series for a number of reasons, but perhaps the most cited one is that it ultimately casts aside the original Bardock special, the very same one that Toriyama approved of and liked so much that he worked it into his own manga. It not only erases it, but it drastically alters many underlying themes from the series, stretching all the way back to the debut of Raditz. The specifics of those alterations we'll get into later, but as a result, it does mean that Dragon Ball Minus is something I personally cannot stand. However, and this is something I can't get out of my head, Minus is ultimately a 16-page bonus chapter. It's an afterthought, it's barely a story, it's more or less a series of scenes and little descriptions. With its inclusion in this brand new movie, Toriyama's potentially getting the chance to really tell this version of events in an expanded and more carefully considered manner that maybe won't just feel like a big exposition dump. Regardless of personal feelings about the content of the story, can Dragon Ball Super Broly bring Minus to the screen in a way that's interesting, emotionally engaging, and actually feels like a story? What I'm talking about here is of course execution. I'm a strong believer that you can intensely hate what a story has to say, while also feeling invested in it and appreciative of the artistry behind the way it's told. My big go-to Dragon Ball example of this is coincidentally Episode of Bardock, the much maligned OVA that sees the father of Goku become the legendary Super Saiyan. At its core, I think it's a terrible story that I suppose, much like Dragon Ball Minus, makes the Goku lineage far too special and ultimately undermines the nuances of these characters. However, I think as a piece of entertainment, that special is really well told. Veteran Dragon Ball director Yoshihiro Ueda does a remarkable job of creating engaging and atmospheric scenes, with top-tier animators like Ryo Onoshi producing some of the most memorable pieces of animation in the franchise. Instead of me sitting there rolling my eyes at this mental time travel Super Saiyan nonsense, I'm invested and I'm enjoying it even if I fundamentally disagree with everything it has to say. This of course works the other way around. I love Battle of Gods in near enough every part of its script, but its direction is only so-so, and yet in spite of that, it's one of my favourite Dragon Ball movies. So if that's the case, then surely this new Broly movie has the opportunity to turn Minus from a near universally maligned story into something that's at the very least engaging. For me, that's a really difficult question to answer. Episode of Bardock was just a little side story that spawned from a spin-off manga by Naoho Oishi. Even if I did happen to enjoy the content, it doesn't really have any place in this post-original run manga continuity. Minus, on the other hand, comes from Toriyama's pen. Even if it shouldn't, that carries much more weight than anything from Toei's writing staff or Toyotaro, at least for me. There's no middleman, there's no interference, that is pure and simple Toriyama, and regardless of your opinion on it, it changes a lot about the series. Toriyama's certainly never been shy about retroactively altering things, but it's typically been done in a way that doesn't shake the foundation of the series, and instead comes across as a reveal. Raditz shows up and says that planet Vegeta was destroyed by an asteroid collision, and then that's turned into a twist when he decides that actually Frieza should be the one responsible. Later down the line we get Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, and suddenly it's Beerus who's the one who encouraged all of that. Of course, there are many examples like this with Beerus. He was apparently the one who exterminated the dinosaurs, who made Kaio's planet tiny, and who trapped the Elder Kaioshin in the Z-Sword. It's almost a meme at this point that everything boils down to Beerus did it. These additions aren't destructive changes though, despite involving the god of destruction. They fall perfectly in line with many of the convenient reveals found in the original run. Minus, on the other hand, changes foundations. It changes the way the Saiyans were depicted and described, it changes the nuances of Goku's character. First and foremost, Raditz describes the Saiyans as a warrior and entrepreneurial race whose existence is ultimately about commandeering planets and eliminating the natives. He talks about fully grown Saiyans being assigned to the more difficult worlds, while the kids are sent off to weaker planets for practice. These horrific descriptions entirely match Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta's brutal characterization when they appear on Earth. When Frieza's thrown into the equation later, it's a natural combination of two terrifying and brutal forces. It is believable that they would work together. What's great is that this exposition suddenly makes Goku an infinitely more interesting character. He's not just someone who loves to fight and help his friends, often saving the Earth in the process. He's now someone who was sent to destroy Earth by this horrific race, only through happenstance turning good, and ultimately doing the very opposite. In Dragon Ball Minus, this fundamental core of the series is erased. While the Saiyans absolutely still ravage planets, we're introduced to Goku's mother Gine. She's kind-hearted, she cares about her family, and through Bardock's own words, she's rubbing off on him. This alone strips away a layer of Goku. If his parents were these special, kind-hearted Saiyans, then it's no longer this beautifully dramatic twist of fate that turned him good. He's suddenly this special Saiyan, he's different from all the rest, and he's just following a possible path laid out by his special parents. Likewise, instead of being cast off to destroy Earth, he's sent there to survive on the brink of his home planet's destruction. His parents tell him, "You must live," in this big, Superman-esque send-off, and it immediately crushes the nuances of his character. Due to the total lack of real build-up and characterization, there's not even an emotional aspect to play up here. It's a flat, empty, harmful scene. It also makes Goku and Vegeta look like total fools and diminishes the subtext of their first fight. Vegeta tells him he was sent to this trash planet because he was tested and deemed to be of low potential. The fight is this magnificent embodiment of the Saiyan elite versus the one who succeeded in spite of being cast out. Toriyama's not a particularly complex writer, but when you get these incidentally poetic moments, they hit home and it hurts so much to see them reduced. For me, that's the big, inexcusable issue with Minus, and that's not going to change in this film as demonstrated by the trailer. It's a big, black mark on the series, and that's unfortunately not going to go away. Coming directly from the pen of Toriyama, it's not something that's easily waved away as a side story. In the movie's case, it appears to be an important parallel between Goku and Broly. It's hard for me to think of a way in which that aspect can be salvaged. At the same time, that's the only issue with Minus that I don't think can be fixed. Its other issues are far more to do with storytelling than the story itself. Bardock just knows Frieza's going to do something terrible. Even if you find it believable that he'd work it out due to Frieza asking around about the Super Saiyan and then calling everyone to one spot, the way it's told goes far beyond my suspension of disbelief. Out of nowhere, he's suddenly the only one capable of working it out, unlike the TV special where a vision is forced upon him and nobody else realizes due to a lack of evidence. This take on events makes Bardock much too special. In the original TV version, he's a thug who tried to make a difference, ultimately failed, and is essentially forgotten. In Minus, he's the smart guy who worked it out based on pretty much nothing and saved his son. I think it comes across this way due to the chapter's length. Like I mentioned, it's not really a story, it's 16 pages of things. With stronger direction and expanded writing, it would be incredibly simple to iterate on Bardock learning of what's to come in a way that doesn't feel so convenient. You can build that feeling of unease as he starts to uncover the truth, perhaps with the help of others to alleviate him feeling too special. You can build on him and Gine's character and their relationship relative to the rest of the world so that 1, perhaps their personalities will make a little more sense next to the other Saiyans, and 2, we're invested in them and their goal. If we as an audience care about them and what they're attempting to do, that will ultimately make the impact of both sending Goku away and the destruction of their planet hold some degree of emotional resonance. Yes, they saved their son, but they ultimately failed to save their race. That's dramatic, that's tragic, that doesn't fix the nuance of the Goku issue, but it at least provides an engaging and emotionally fulfilling experience. And that wraps me right back around to my episode of Bardock example. I might not necessarily agree with what the implications of the story are, but if it's written and directed in a way that has a semblance of a soul, then it's significantly easier to stomach. Plot points aside, Minus is badly told. Dragon Ball Super Broly is driven by director Tatsuya Nagamine, who's one of the best at Toei. If there's someone who can do something interesting with this story and tell it in a competent way, then it's going to be him. Already, this second trailer makes me feel much more than anything from that bonus chapter ever did, and that's a very good sign. The thing is, I'm just perpetually stuck in this horrible storm of, I hate the core plot, but I think it could be told well, but it's also presented as part of this new continuity from Toriyama, so I can't just write it off as a side story. It's got Broly in it, but it's not the old Broly, but it kind of still is, and it's now being woven into the series properly. It's clearly shamelessly pandering to the popularity of these characters, but there's actual effort going into it to avoid it feeling soulless, and this is all attached to my favourite members of staff as far as the direction and animation go, and it fucking hurts to think about. December cannot come soon enough. There is just so much up in the air at the moment that it's really hard to know where to place my expectations. So much could go wrong, so much could go right. I don't think I've ever approached a piece of media with so much apprehension before. I know at the very least it's going to look gorgeous, but is it something that's going to stand the test of time and keep bringing me back because I'm invested in the story it's trying to tell? Let me know how you feel about this. Am I alone in feeling this way? Do you think the core of Dragon Ball Minus is as harmful as I feel it is? And if so, do you think the changes I'd like to see will help you feel better about the film? If not, I would absolutely love to hear your interpretation of things and what you'd personally like to see. You know full well, I don't talk about story very often on this channel, but given its importance in the upcoming film and the fact that I plan to review it beyond just its animation, it's a conversation I wanted to have, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have lots to say. If you did like it, then of course be sure to rate the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I will see you next time.